Why, hello there. This is Dan again. I want to talk about one of my favorite items in the entire world, a sword. I mean, this really isn't a sword, to be honest with you. This is really more of an icon, which represents a sword, and it's done kind of in the style of a Freemason sword. Um, these were pretty popular in Freemason circles, and indeed, this one might belong to a local club who may have had this custom made. I actually acquired two of these at an estate sale. And the sword is one of my favorite items on the planet. I love swords. Even simply the icons. These will get hung up somewhere in my house. I'm not sure where yet. Because of what they represent and the historical significance of the sword itself. These were really used to take over the world. Um, they changed the course of history. It's one of the original arms races. This one in particular is not even sharp, but nonetheless, if I angle it against the light correctly, there we go. Nonetheless, it shines. It's beautiful. What a pretty thing. There is something about holding a sword, especially a real one which has been sharpened properly, that it has an effect on the wielder. It changes something in you. We have a connection to these in a way that's very difficult to describe. There's a innate connection to the item itself. There's almost a memory, an ancestral memory of the function of the item. And of course, that's not something that I would say is literally true or false. I'm not going to opine very much on something that I couldn't know, but it just feels that way when you hold them. There's something about them that calls to you, something about the item that just feels natural. And everyone that I've had who's actually held one of my swords, and I have many, has basically said the same thing. When they hold it in their hands, a big long sword, they go, "Wow, it's an incredible thing." One of my swords in particular is actually very sharp. It's a full size long sword. It's not exactly historically accurate. It was made by Cold Steel, but I will say that the build quality is exceptionally good. The hilt is tight. Feels a little heavier than what a traditional sword would have, possibly even a lot with the way that the blade is distributed. But that thing is a tank. It could, I mean, they put them through quite a lot of trials, and I don't have like a properly made by hand $1,500 Albion or anything like that. Although I do have a great level of admiration and appreciation for items like that. But I have some swords in the multiple hundreds of dollars range, and um, several of them are what you would call battle ready. Not that it really matters in 2025, but it is kind of fun to know that if you had to use it, you could. As silly as that sounds. Now, I collect them because of the beauty of them, not because I have any desire to use a sword. There are modern tools which are much more effective and also more readily available, and also don't really cost any more than these things. So these are really historical relics, artifacts, which remind you of a time where things were different. And for me, when I hold them, it teleports me back into those days, and I just think of the way that things used to be, the history of battle, the way that people would charge in, And not even just the battles themselves. In fact, it's not mostly the battles themselves that the swords take me to. It's mostly the time frame and the era that these swords were popularized in. There's almost something magical about holding one. Like I said, I just don't even want to put them down, even though this one isn't real at all. The reflection of the blade to me is something special. The way the light catches it, it's really a magnificent thing. The sword is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And kings held them, and knights held them, and noblemen had them on their person, and they fell in and out of popularity depending on the time frame. And even the style of weapon that was chosen really evolved as armor changed. As armor became to the point where people were basically walking around in a suit of metal from head to toe, swords really fell out of popularity. Um, and different tools became more popular. One of the I think it's called a rondelle. I can't remember right now. It's been a long time since I did a deep study on this subject, but I have one, and it's basically a triangular spike that was designed to go through chainmail and fit in between the gaps on the armor. And knights would have carried one of those in addition to a long sword, because fights typically devolved into wrestling matches among knights. That's how effective the armor was. The swords themselves really weren't that useful in terms of actually delivering some kind of fatality. Instead, rather, your swords would clash and then you would end up grappling, and both fighters would drop their swords and someone would pull out a rondelle or something. And I think that's what it's called, a rondelle. And it could be a different name though. Anyway, it's a triangular spike about this long, almost the length of a dagger, and that would go into the armor in between a chainmail, and it was forceful enough that you could split the chainmail open even if it was riveted. So different time, and people used hammers and axes as ways to deal with armor, and they would use flails as ways to go around the shields. And there's always been a technological arms race, both on the side of defense and offense. And at different times in history, defense has outpaced offense, but we're far beyond those days now. But nobility carrying swords on their person is one of the most inspiring things to me. I think that it's a symbol, it's an icon, which is what the same reason that I have them now is the icon of what the sword is. To me, is an incredible thing. It's a symbol of individuality and autonomy and self-reliance, independence. It's a symbol of the individual will. And even if you don't decide to buy one, I think that most men should at least hold a sword at least once to understand that historical link to a time where many things about life were the same, but many things were very different. I know it sounds almost ridiculous to say in 2025, but I do think that the sword carries within it the potential for some kind of spiritual awakening inside of you, some kind of emotional awakening. Anyway, I bought these swords at an estate sale. They were the small swords. They're really decorative pieces that will go on a wall, but I couldn't say no. I got them at a pretty reasonable price, I guess. I don't know if it was that reasonable. I didn't pay very much for them. And I thought they would look nice on a wall, and they're cheaper than modern art, and they're more beautiful than modern art. So why not? They sit tight in the sheath, so I can do it. So I will do it. um, anyway, I don't have too much to talk about. I'm going through basically like the fatigue from a post adrenaline dump, and I think that it's going to be lasting for a while, probably some weeks. So if I seem low energy, that's the reason why I am low energy. I'm fatigued, and at any rate, I wish you well, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace and blessings, and have a lovely day. This will be uploaded in the morning, so have a lovely day. Bye bye. I'll see you in the next one.